This is a podcast interviewing different people in technical fields, programming fields, to be able to learn from their life and story. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Theo Luciano. So, Theo, how about we start things off by you just telling a little bit about yourself?
Sounds good, Luke. Thanks for having me. So I'm Theo. I'm a product designer at Role Model Software in I guess we're in Apex, North Carolina now, just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. And I've been doing software design for about just over 2 years now, I think. I've been at Role Model Software for just actually had my work anniversary yesterday. So I've been here for 4 years. Originally from small town Minnesota, moved down to North Carolina for this job after going through the Praxis program, which I think some of your listeners will be familiar with. That's kind of the short synopsis of how I got to where I am. And happy to get into more of it as time goes on, but that's my intro. So
I kind of want to start things off very, very beginning. What was it like for you growing up?
That's a good question. It's how everybody's story begins, It's just it defines a lot of their life, I grew up, like I said, small town Minnesota. I was one of 11 children, homeschooled, just wonderful parents who invested in us a lot, teaching us the word, teaching us how to live right, and teaching us to be we lived out in the country, so we didn't have much internet. We didn't have all the movies and games, and we never had a console growing up, any of that kind of stuff. And so we grew up with the mentality that our siblings are our best friends, and we spent a lot of time just interacting with each other. And I wouldn't trade those years for anything. Definitely gave me a helpful perspective on life, I think, as I've become an adult and moved on away from home. So those were wonderful years. I really value the relationships that I cultivated with my siblings and my parents. Obviously there were more friends than just them too. But that was a lot of growing up. I was big into sports. My dad was a wrestling coach. He wrestled in high school and college, and then coached high school wrestling. So I did a little bit of youth wrestling, and then got into my senior year of high school. Was able to wrestle for the local high school team, and that was another one of those experiences that I think. I mean, I would recommend wrestling to anyone. It's kind of a niche sport, but man, it teaches you hard work. It teaches you with that hard work, you can achieve great things. It's just one of those good things where you got to put in the work if you want to see results. So that's a little bit of my formative years and how I grew up.
Did you ever think about what you were gonna do professionally as a kid? Like, what were your kind of dreams and what you wanted to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah, I mean, who didn't, right? I feel like when I was the first thing I can remember wanting to do was I saw one day our garbage truck pull up to dump our garbage, or pick up our garbage, waste management. And those big green trucks and with the claw on the side. I was like, that's what I want to do. That's a good job. My dad, I think he took me to the local like main place where they send the trucks out from. They just built it, and I think it was my 4th birthday, which I've seen pictures of it, but I don't really remember it that well. But I think that's what it was, my 4th birthday. So that was a long time ago. And that was one of those things you go into a setting like that, and you think you like it, and then you get to hang out around the trucks and get souvenirs and stuff, and you start to think, oh, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. Thankfully, a couple of years went by, and I was like, okay, maybe that's not all that's in the works for me. So, I mean, I covered everything: firefighter, police officer. As I got a little bit older, I started to think I'd like to maybe be a pilot. I actually more recently took some flying lessons and would love to do that again someday, but actually get my maybe private pilot's license. But as you can see, didn't go into being a pilot full time or pursue that career. Um, but those were kind of those big dream type jobs that I can look back to and say, oh, I had that at one point. But as I got older, it started to be just a little bit more of, I want to find something that doesn't try and take over my life and become like everything that I am, because I don't think that's the way to live. But
Mm.
also, that I can feel like I'm good at, that I can provide value, and gives me an opportunity to provide for myself and my family. So those were kind of the big things that I thought about as I uh, got more into the professional world.
How did Praxis enter into the equation?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So I was working blue collar. I was doing blue collar work up in Minnesota. I had a LLC. I was doing subcontracting construction work, installing windows and other things like that, which was great work on its own as well. But as I was doing it, I was like, man, I think there might be. I don't know if this is what I'm going to be doing long term. So my sister she went to I think it was a fee conference. So Foundation for Economic Excellence or something like that. I think that's what it's called. It's big in the Praxis circle. I know a bunch of people who have gone through Praxis have ended up working there. But he went to one of their conferences, I believe, in Atlanta, and heard about this program, and they were offering like a homeschool scholarship at the time for like a full ride. And so I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, she told me about the program, and it was, trying to give you some technical skills to get your foot in the door and work at a company or something like that. And it was a lot of the things that I was like, okay, this might be more of a direction I want to go. So and also the opportunity for that scholarship to have it kind of paid for was
Mm-hmm.
intriguing. So
Yeah.
I applied and wrote the little essay I think they were asking for, and did the interview and got accepted. Didn't end up winning the getting the scholarship, which was interesting to me that I still went through with it, because I look at
Mm.
myself now and back then just very like risk averse kind of, and so I'm grateful for that, for taking that I took that step. I have to give credit to the Lord, I think, for giving me kind of he helped me take that step and feel like that was the right thing for me, because
Mm.
I can be not so good at doing that kind of thing, about taking that step. But I
Mm.
did, and it really was formative for my life. So it's cool to look back on that. So yeah, I jumped in and started doing Praxis when I was on the road. This is a story in itself, but I for a time I led a team to bunch of cemeteries around the Midwest, taking pictures of gravestones for the VA. It was a VA contract job, so
Oh,
pretty,
wow.
yeah, it was a pretty interesting job. But so during that time, I was on the road and I was doing Praxis in the evenings, and recording all my videos and doing my 30 days blog post challenge and all that. So it
Mm.
was a time of, I had a lot of things going, but it was really good to be focused on what I was working towards, and I got stuff done.
For a second there, whenever you said that you were taking people around to different cemeteries, I thought you were
Yeah.
about to say you did ghost tours, and I was just like,
No.
what in the world? What did this just turn into?
Yeah. No. It's there's always a bit of a hesitation when I say that. I'm always like, ah, man, I'm gonna have to give the full explanation and do it quick. Otherwise, people are gonna be like, what is this guy doing?
What were kind of your biggest takeaways from Praxis?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. I mean, they definitely validated that feeling of, there's a different way to get to get going with your career.
Mm.
I'd always, coming from my family, there was a lot of us. College, it's always an option, but when you have some more, when you have to think a little bit more about the financial side of things, it sometimes causes you to hesitate a little bit more. And that was part of it. But my dad had just kind of instilled some good values on being smart with watching debt and all that kind of stuff, and just seeing all these people going into college and going crazy in debt and coming out with a degree that they then just didn't use, or were back with living back with their parents again or something like that, was just a little bit. I was like, yeah, it doesn't seem right. But I didn't have, besides my dad and a few other close people, I didn't really have that kind of more mainstream, maybe validation or kind of source of some of bunch of other people who kind of had the same thoughts and were seeing another way. So Praxis was a big way to do that, and they, it wasn't just from ripping on college and saying, oh, it's no good, but they gave you steps to take. They were instilling those values in you, and just seeing the projects that people were doing, and the projects that I did in the program, and comparing them with kind of like college projects that people are doing, capstone projects, things like that. And you're looking at it, you're like, we're doing the same thing, and this boot camp stage is like 3 months long or whatever it was, 3 months, 6 months, something like that. And just seeing that progress, that fast progress, was really cool. And yeah, and then the way that they kind of stood by you through the placement phase of trying to working with you to get a job and helping you interview and pitch. Yeah, the whole concept of value propositions, and not just clicking apply on the LinkedIn post, sending in your resume and hoping that it's gonna wow somebody, is a really powerful concept that I don't think people use enough these days. So those were a few of the things that kind of stuck out to me. There's more, but off the top of my head, that's what I got.
So where did Praxis land you?
Yeah, so I can remember where I was when I heard. So I think Sarah Morrison was still running the kind of she was the kind of chief, I forget the title, but she was running placement and just making sure everybody was was going where they needed to go. And she sent me a message one day, and she said somebody wanted to talk to you. And I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I had in my mind, like, it'd be maybe kind of cool to go to Florida, or there were a couple startups out in San Francisco that I was like, this might be kind of cool. And she sent me the information. It was like, yeah, this guy, Ken Auer, there's a software shop in North Carolina, or Holly Springs, I think it was. And I was like, Holly Springs, I've never heard of that. So I looked it up, and it was like, the map, that moment where it circles in on the map, and you're like, oh, it's North Carolina. And for a second, I was like, man, I kind of forgot North Carolina even existed. It was kind of funny. It's just not, at the time, it was not a state that I thought about very often, which is funny, because these days it seems like everybody comes from North Carolina, or like went to UNC or something like that. But yeah, so the opportunity arose. We had a call where he told us a little bit about, Ken told us a little bit about what he would be bringing me in for potentially, and quickly realized just the company aligned very, very closely with some of the things that I cared about. A lot of culture fit there, and I think they felt the same way about me, which was cool. So met some people early on that really helped me to feel good about it, and prayed about it, and then it was kind of just, yeah, all right, let's step out and do it and see how it goes. It was still kind of an internship thing. I think it was 6 months, so it was a little bit of a trial, or trial as in this is a kind of a testing season. But I packed all my stuff into my old VW, and drove down to North Carolina, and I have not driven back. I've flown back, but
Wow.
I've never driven back. So yeah, got in there, was working in product development, around a particular suite of software products that Role Model has started and continue to develop. Though I have since moved over to design full time.
Hmm.
That's how I came to where I am now. So
Well, what did the work
yeah.
kind of look like whenever you first got there? I know you mentioned it was like product development, but
Yeah. I mean, so that was my title, product development intern when I started, and then product specialist as time went on. But yeah, I'm not sure if it is if a person in proper product development came and asked me about what I did, if it would fit the same things. Doesn't really matter. That
hmm.
was it was a very general role, so I covered a lot of ground. Spent probably most of my time during those days doing support for a Ninja Sports timing system. So my Ken, the founder of Role Model, he's since moved on from Role Model, but his kind of passion project or his second business is he runs a couple of ninja gyms. So like American Ninja Warrior, if you're familiar with that.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, he got really into it, and his sons got really into it, and so they run a
Hmm.
couple of gyms. And so he built software to keep track of scores, timing, results, things like that, because he just didn't see a good option for that in the industry. So he built that, and then he's been kind of running support, and there were a couple other guys who were doing it too. But then when I came in, I pretty much took that over. So
Hmm.
that was doing a little bit of fixes on the website, getting in the code a little bit, some database stuff here and there, but mostly just using a kind of a CRM. I think it would be to interact with people having issues or
Hmm.
people needing refunds, things like that. It was good. It got pretty technical at times where I'd like I said, I'd be jumping in the database to fix somebody's score that got messed up and all
Hmm.
that. And yeah, there was a lot to that. But that was the focus. Other than that, I did so the suite of software products that we were kind of trying to develop. I spent a lot of time with that too. So I was creating videos that kind of showcased what these products would do. Um, Trying to do like outreach at times, user testing, things like that, to try, because it was when I was doing that work, it was very early on with some of these products.
Hmm.
So we were just trying to get people in who would agree to use them and then get feedback and see how we could improve it. So that was a lot of it. And then as time went on, yeah, I do a little bit of, yeah, like I said, it was general. So I was doing a little bit of
Hmm.
design here and there, working with some different CAD editors, because that was kind of what the suite of software products, that was the underpinnings of it. It was kind of a faster
Hmm.
way to do CAD type stuff. So some of that as well. So yeah, a lot of different things. But that was where I started.
How'd the transfer happen then from the development side to the design side?
Yeah. So as time went on, I it 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 was a little bit hard just doing so many different things. It felt like the opportunity to grow wasn't as much. There was an opportunity for growth there, but I was starting to question if that was the direction I wanted to go. Um,
Hmm.
and so there had been a couple of opportunities to work on more software product design related things. I've always loved the opportunities when I could do graphic design, so that was part of it
Hmm.
too. Just getting to be creative and artistic, things like that. Um, and then yeah, so a couple opportunities arose to do some specific product design for a couple of our software products, and our product design director saw some of what I did, and he saw some potential there and said that he would like to take me on if that was something I wanted to do. So kind of when my review rolled around, there was kind of a couple options on the table, and I really appreciate my company for giving me that opportunity to
Hmm.
say, hey, you've never done design officially before. We're not just going to cut you loose because you weren't really feeling like you want to do what we brought you in for anymore, but we appreciate you as a employee, and we're going to try to find a place for you doing something that will be more fulfilling to you. So yeah, got started on that and have been able to stick around and grow and level up a few times. So that's been cool to see. Lots more learning and growth to come, but yeah, I've come a long way in the last couple of years.
I know you mentioned CSS, but what does the work kind of look like? Is it mostly that, or is there more?
Yeah, no, good question. Yeah, so if you're familiar with product design or not, generally a lot of it is it'll center around UI and UX design.
Mm.
So that is primarily what I'm doing. So user interface, that's the UI, and user experience, that's the UX. So UX is really looking at when I'm building a product, what is how should a user interact with this product, and trying to find the best way to create an experience that a user finds intuitive. Delightful is definitely a plus, but a lot of people lean over towards delightful or beautiful first, and they neglect the more UXy side of it, where they're actually figuring out what problem are we solving and how are we solving it. So that's what I do, and then yeah, I do get to work with the trying to make things a little prettier, more fun to interact with, or easy to interact with, and that's some of the UI. So do a lot of work in Figma, and then some other wireframing tools as well.
Mm.
And then occasionally, yeah, we'll jump in and do some implementation with CSS, or I've dabbled a little bit now in some JS and Ruby, things like that. So yeah, I'd love to get more into the actual kind of front end implementation. So that's an area I'm trying to grow in myself. But yeah, focus primarily on UI and UX design is where I'm at these days.
How do you interact with your employees in that role?
Like other peers
Yeah, yeah.
in the company. Yeah, it's a good question. So the design team at Role Model is still pretty small. There's about 5 of us, I think, right now, and that's
Mm.
including our design director and an actually more of an apprentice designer who just came on recently. So there's there's 3 of us kind of mid-level designers, and that means there's about probably about 45 employees at Role Model right now. So that means that we're kind of spread across a few different projects. So I was on one project for pretty much the first 2 years that I was working,
Mm.
and recently jumped on another project as well. So I'm kind of
Mm.
trying to support 2 projects right now, and the other designers are supporting 2 or 3 projects as well. So you definitely have, on the front end of a project, when you're just kicking off, you have more of a heavy design effort, where it's more of the designer's time invested of getting things off on the right foot. But then as time goes on, you're able to roll off a little bit and split your time a little bit more with other things you need to do. And it's daily interactions generally with the client. We have stand-ups every morning generally, and we're talking about what we did yesterday and what we're planning on doing today. And then being accessible for the developers on your team as they build your designs. There's different ways to do design at different companies, and the kind of the way I think about it is, yeah, you go ahead and build your designs in Figma, do the best you can, build your prototypes and everything like that. But it's really helpful to be very accessible and expect to work closely with your developer team as they're
Mm.
implementing your designs, because that way you can find issues and clean them up quickly. Or if you see something that's going down the wrong path, you can say, whoa, it was meant to be more like this. And
Mm.
also, if they see something that you didn't see, we try to be very, very quick to have strong opinions but not hold them too closely, be
Hmm.
able to pivot if there's a technical challenge that we didn't foresee. So that kind of stuff. We try to be, yeah, very. We're a close knit group of people generally. We get along well and generally like working with each other, so that helps when it comes to, the very professional side of it when we need to push back on something or kind of push our point.
Kind of going back a tiny bit, but how was it like for you making such a big move from Minnesota? Because I gather you lived in Minnesota your entire life beforehand. How was it moving all the way from there, and now you're completely on your own in an entirely new place?
Yeah, it was quite an experience. Yeah, I mean, up to that point, up to when I actually moved, I had some experience already, kind of being on the road, working a
Mm,
few different jobs. So I'd been on the road for some extended periods of time, and then I had
okay.
also just, yeah, grown up a little bit and gotten used to, okay, this is life. You kind of you spend your time at your parents' house growing up, and then you move on and go forward. So obviously, close with my family and everything, and love them very much, but knowing that this is time to fly the nest and move
Hmm.
on. So that was, my family was probably the, leaving them behind, so far behind, was
Mm,
probably a big thing. And I still miss them and everything. But that was probably the bigger thing, because I'd I had friends and everything, and other things that I would feel like I was leaving behind. But I've just, I was looking forward. I saw an opportunity I saw a good opportunity, and it felt like that was where the Lord was leading me, and I felt confident in that. And so it was also exciting, being on
mm,
my own. I was single at the time, just kind of seeing a new state. None of my family had ever been down here. Nobody I knew down here, except I did have one connection, which was cool. But mostly, it was like a new world almost. So
mm.
I could kind of forge my own path and be my own man, kind of.
Yeah.
So that was. It took a little bit of getting used to, and it was rough for the first I think for the first month or two, I was pretty much living in Airbnbs,
Mm,
Airbnb jumping until I found a more permanent spot. And that permanent spot ended up being in like NC State student housing with three random guys that I didn't know, and I was definitely the cleanest person there. It was it was something. Oh man, there's a lot of stories from those days, but it went well, and it was good for me. I think it's good for anyone to have that experience when it's right. And I'm grateful for it. So.
what would you kind of say to someone then who's trying to decide if it's right for them, or maybe is like decided on it and is like, I'm kind of terrified and I don't know how I'm gonna make this work? What would you tell them?
Yeah. I think we had a thread in Praxis a couple months ago where one of the main people was asking, if you could tell yourself something when you were 17. If you could tell your 17-year-old self something, what would you tell them? And I think I just said, do that really hard, scary thing. You're gonna be fine.
Mm,
And that's what I would say, with grace, of course, and understanding of somebody who might be a little terrified. But I think stepping out in faith, stepping out and doing the hard thing, even when you're not quite sure about how it's going to go. Obviously, be smart and calculate your risks, but generally, if you do that, and if you take good, if you have good people investing in your life who are you're consulting and those kinds of things, you're gonna the opportunity is it's not gonna blow up in your face, and
mm,
you're gonna be better for it, whether you end up with your definition of success or failure. Whether a failure is still an opportunity to learn and grow. So yeah, if I was talking to somebody who had that opportunity, I'd listen to the opportunity and make sure it was a good one. It wasn't a scam or anything weird. And then I would say, yeah, if you see potential there, then go for it, because it's no good sitting around and thinking about what could have been. And yeah, just take hold of it and go after it. And yeah, and then you can circle back and see if you made the right choice or not, but you're still going to gain something from that experience no matter what happens.
I think that's a pretty great place to leave things, if there's nothing else to say. So, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to be on. Really appreciated it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Luke. Great questions, and yeah, I'm sure we'll talk again soon. But hope all the listeners just have a great day and keep listening.